India had successfully landed its Chandrayaan-3 Vikram lander on the lunar south polar region on the 23rd of August 2023. To commemorate this feat, every year, the 23rd of August has been declared as National Space Day by the Government of India. In this connection, on the 9th of August 2024, at the National Institute of Disaster Management, New Delhi, a pre-event workshop was organized by NIDM in collaboration with the National Disaster Management Authority, Ministry of Home Affairs, and National Remote Sensing Center. The workshop, themed Space Technology for Disaster Management, was graced by senior decision makers, scientists, industry experts, academics, and media. The program began with the Saraswati Vandana, followed by the welcome address by Professor Surya Prakash, head of the Geometeorological Risks Management Division and the CBRN, Industrial and Cyber DRR Division at the National Institute of Disaster Management.
I would like to welcome you all on behalf of National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, as well as our partner and collaborator in this program, National Disaster Management Authority, Government of India. I am very happy to have received lot of nominations that have come on a volunteer basis for participation in this program. We didn't have to make much effort in this organization of particular program because I found lot of interest from all sectors in the field of space technologies as well as in disaster management. Being the maiden day of the first year of completion of landing of our rover Vikram on the south pole of moon, celebration of great success story and victory of India's efforts in space sector as a center of excellence, country which is leading by actions, not by words. So we are proud of our scientists, our leaders, our motivators who have led to this victory. Now, in the field of disaster management, we have been making lot of applications from these space technologies, particularly in the areas which are inaccessible, which we want to overview as a region and understand the various processes and phenomena which are affecting our human lives, livelihoods, living places, as well as resources, economy, infrastructure, environment, utilities and services. We are here together. I am very proud to say that the Department of Space, ISRO and NRSC, they have come forward to join hands with us on this occasion, and we are thankful to Secretary Department of Space who nominated representatives from NRSC to be part of this inaugural program as well. You know all that recently there was a major landslide in Kerala at Wayanad district where lot of casualties had happened. It was a big event which occurred over a long distance and killed several hundreds of people. More than 300 are expected to have been killed, and still the search and rescue operations are ongoing. Such an area, we cannot deal it visually by human observations. We need such places, the interventions from space technologies. Our Department of Space actually gathered the information and compared the pre and post images and found out which are the areas and how those interventions have led to the landslide and where can we expect the search and rescue operations to be concentrated, where the mass has gathered and where the people may have been buried. So all these are actually instances and examples where space technology have actually helped. I also remember the Sunday morning of 7th February 2021 when in Chamoli, when a big rock mass failed and the glacier body also got brushed. Along with that, and then the Dholi Ganga and the Rishi Ganga rivers, they were flooded with debris, and two major hydro projects, Rishi Ganga Power Project and the Tapovan Power Project, adversely affected, and we had a casualty of more than 204 people at a particular hydropower project site. These are events which are actually reminding us and how we can try to prevent or mitigate those factors which are leading to occurrences of such impactful events. So this is an occasion where we are trying to bring them together, and we'll have technical sessions as well as panel discussion on those different issues. And we are happy to inform here that we got experts from all our nodal agencies which are involved in early warning, communication and dissemination, as well as alerts related to different type of hazards, including cyclones, lightning, earthquake, tsunami, flood, and so on. So it's an occasion, I would say, where we can all find some advantage and key outcomes which you can take home, reduce the risk and enhance our resilience. As per our mandate, we have been working on it on a regular basis through various modes of our interactions with our experts and also with the all concerned stakeholders. As we always say in disaster management, all inclusive ecosystem based approach, no one left behind. So we have been dealing with it as per our Sendai framework for DRR, which was declared in 2015 and continues till 2030, and everyone is safe. So it's our duty not only to become aware, informed and prepared ourselves, but share it with others so that no one vulnerable or susceptible to these hazards. So with these words, I thank each and every one of you for joining hands with us as a team. As we always say, team means together each achieve more. So until unless we join hands together, we cannot achieve the goal of our national policy on disaster management, which is disaster free and resilient India, and actually envisaged NIDM to be a regional center of excellence and a global center of excellence, where we are trying to make our efforts, and we did achieve some goals, but still many more goals and destinations to be covered before we actually gain our complete success. And I must share the pleasure that we were successful in achieving our goal in some of the events. Particularly I can mention the recent Biparjoy cyclone, which landed on 15th June, ended in Gujarat with 0 casualty. So where in the previous events there have been thousands of casualties. I still remember 29th October 1999, Odisha super cyclone, where around more than 13,000 casualties have been said to happen. So we have reached from that day to this time where we are able to actually understand the natural processes as per Sendai framework, which is the first priority, and also we are strengthening our governance and investing in DRR, as well as utilizing the opportunities and lessons learned from the past and the recent events for paving our way for future risk reduction and resilience. So I wish all safe, healthy, good quality life on an equitable, justifiable and a right-based manner with good fraternity amongst all of us. So these words, I once again welcome you all on behalf of NIDM and DMA and on my personal behalf as well. So thank you very much for joining hands with us, and wish you all the best, and hope you will have an enjoyable, enriching and entertaining.
Shri Rajendra Ratnu, IAS, Executive Director, NIDM said,
आज हम नेशनल स्पेस डे के एक प्री इवेंट के रूप में we stand here to celebrate our achievement and look forward to the future endeavors. Let us honor this spirit of innovation and exploration that drives us and continue to inspire future generations to reach for the stars. This workshop is focusing particularly on 3 themes: understanding the role of space technologies in disaster management. This also highlights Honorable Prime Minister's 10-point agenda, where he has emphasized in Asian Ministerial Conference about use of technologies in disaster risk reduction. And this also brings us to the third important objective, to create awareness and to bring synergy between all decision makers, researchers, scientists, academicians and the stakeholders. डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट वो हम सभी लोग काम करें, लेकिन अक्सर कई बार जाने अनजाने में हम अपने साइलोज में काम करते हैं और ये इंटीग्रेशन जो है वो कहीं न कहीं मिसिंग होता है. तो ये स्पेस टेक्नोलॉजी में भी बहुत डिफरेंट तरह के स्टेक होल्डर्स है जो डिफरेंट लेवल्स ऑफ डिजास्टर पे इसका उपयोग किया जा सकता है, चाहे वह रिस्क असेसमेंट के लिए हो, अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ रिस्क के लिए हो, कि जो खतरों को समझना और उन्हें मापना कि वो किस स्तर के, किस तीव्रता के, किस फ्रीक्वेंसी के हैं, उसी तरह से उनकी लगातार मॉनिटरिंग के लिए. फॉर एग्जांपल अगर ग्लोव का खतरा है तो उसे कैसे मॉनिटर किया जा सकता है. इसी तरह अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम में, यानी उस रिस्क वार्निंग में, और इसी तरह से बेटर प्रिपेयर्डनेस में, और वहां तक ही नहीं बल्कि बेटर रिस्पांस में भी. आज हमारे बीच में एक ऐसे डिग्नेटरी है चीफ गेस्ट के रूप में जो स्वयं इस देश में बहुत ही बड़ा एक इवेंट हुआ था, कच्छ अर्थक्वेक. ही वाज वेरी मच इन हेल्प ऑफ दोज एफर्ट्स. आई विल रिक्वेस्ट हिम टू आल्सो ब्रिंग ऑन हिज एक्सपीरियंसेस दैट हैड द स्पेस टेक्नोलॉजी technologies been there, how would the scenario been very different at that time? जो बहुत ही आपदा आती है तो उस समय हमारे रिसोर्सेज को कहाँ पे एलोकेट करना है, कहाँ पे हमें फोकस करना है, अगर उसका जो क्विक असेसमेंट अगर हमारे पास में स्पेस टूल्स होते हैं या टेक्नोलॉजीज होती है, वी कैन वेरी क्लियरली आइडेंटिफाई कि कहाँ कहाँ पे कितना इंटेंसिटी ऑफ डैमेज हुआ है, कहाँ पे रोड्स और अदर रास्ते मोटरेबल हैं या नहीं है, और उसमें डिप्लॉयमेंट ऑफ रिसोर्सेज, ह्यूमन एंड अदर रिसोर्सेज का जो विभाजन है वो किस तरह से होना चाहिए, उसके लिए भी जो स्पेस टेक्नोलॉजी और स्पेस बेस्ड टूल्स हैं दे कैन बी वेरी वेरी हेल्पफुल इन मेकिंग दैट हैपन। फिर से मैं इस स्पेस डे की बात करते हुए चंद्रयान 3 जिसने की बहुत ही सेफ और सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग की थी चंद्रमा की सरफेस पे अगस्त 2023 को, दिस हैज मार्क्ड अ वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट अचीवमेंट फॉर आवर नेशन एंड दिस mission, India became the 4th country in the world to reach to the moon's surface and the first country ever to land near the unexplored southern polar region. The soft landing was followed by the successful development of Pragyan rover and landing site was named as Shiv Shakti Point. And this recognition of this historic event on August 23 has been declared as a National Space Day. We will celebrate annually starting from this 23rd August 2024. And as we gather here to achieve this major milestone, this is also a time to, reflect that India, while emerging as a prominent global player in space research, and it also coincides with a major development in the space technology where NASA and ISRO have come together for a very strong partnership to bring out a very important product which entire globe is looking at called NISAR. And space technology and disaster management, I think there'll be a lot of deliberation in this workshop, and this workshop spells out after address from our chief guest as well as Dr. Durga Rao. We'll be having 2 parallel technical sessions, one on disaster management and space technology where there'll be almost 5 presentation. This will be in Chanakya Hall under the chairmanship of Shri Vivek Srivastav Sahab, and another parallel panel discussions which will be in the Dronacharya Hall where we will be having galaxy of the private people who have done lot of innovative solutions. So we have to see that what kind of products today are available in the market. Event is not only about the government doing something, but I think we have to understand that government is both a user and great promoter of technologies, but at the same time there is a market which also integrate the international demand and the latest know-how. So there will be 4 sessions in that, and followed by that in the post lunch again there are 2 parallel sessions, one technical session 2 on space technology in geohydrometeorological disasters chaired by Professor Surya Prakash, where around 5 to 6 presentations will be there, and parallelly panel discussion will be happening in Dronacharya Hall on use of space technology in crop insurance and space technology easing the complexity of parametric insurance. So we are not only touching about the scientific aspect and understanding of the disaster, but we are also looking at the response aspect, and not only that but the mitigation aspect as well as the new emerging areas of risk financing, how they can be intertwined with the data availability in the real time using the ground level data gathering with the real time space data validation. So with that, I think that gives a picture of how the today's day is going to spell out, and I now request to take this event forward. And once again I thank chief guest Vivek Srivastav Sahab for agreeing to be the honor our invitation on a very very short notice, which shows the synergy between Directorate General of Fire Services and this institute. And it will not be out of context to mention that we are very strongly working with the fire department to see that how the larger context of disaster risk reduction can be imbibed into the senior and middle level fire services management. And Sri Taj Hassan Sahab has strongly, who was also my predecessor in this institute, has run this institute for 1 year. I am very sure, sir, that in addition to our personal relation, this professional bond between NIDM and fire services will further grow stronger and stronger under leadership.
Dr. KHV Durga Rao, Group Director of DMSG NRSC ISRO, delivered the keynote address, emphasizing the critical role of space technology in disaster management.
You all know that India is one of the worst disaster affected countries in the world. You name any disaster, it is there in the country. Floods, cyclones, tsunami, forest fires, landslides, earthquakes, anything, maybe except volcanoes. But and the damage caused by these disasters are very huge. Mainly the damage caused by floods and cyclones in view of the economic loss. And in recent years, if you look at the floods and cyclones are increasing, are spreading to different states. Earlier, we used to monitor floods mainly in few states, 6 to 8 states. But for the last 5-6 years, we are observing floods, major floods I mean to say, in almost 14 to 15 states in the country every year. Okay, it may be due to climate change or it may be due to any other reasons. And moreover, in recent years, the flash disasters, like major disaster in Rishiganga River, created major damage to Tapovan project. And another disaster last year, like South Lonak Lake, Glacier Lake outburst. And this year, recent disaster in Kerala, huge landslide. These are throwing challenges particularly on the disaster management officials to handle it. So the main advantage of this technology, to invention of this high-end super fast computing systems or sophisticated models and everything, the human loss we could minimize due to disasters. Particularly, for example, if you compare the super cyclone in Assam in 1999 and similar magnitude cyclones 2019-20 time like Amphan cyclone which struck Orissa and West Bengal coast. Okay, that time about more than 10,000 casualties. Amphan cyclone time, it was about 10, in the order of 10. Okay, this all could happen because of this high-end technology and forecast of cyclones much in advance, 5 days forecast. Okay, and flood forecast in major rivers. Okay, so we could control the damage. So natural disasters we cannot stop. Okay, these are the natural phenomena. But the damage created by the disasters can be minimized by using the technology. But in the recent disasters, these are something challenging for us, how to address these flash disasters particularly, how to give the warning, because in response phase we cannot do anything. In early warning phase only we have to do something. Okay. Coming to the role of technology, I will give classic examples. When there was a Rishiganga disaster happened, because massive landslide, rock slide I mean, happened in Himalayas. It got detached from the hill and fallen from about the height of 1800 meters. The rock slide that was detached is about 40 football stadium size. Okay. When it fallen from that much height, the glaciated material and snow beneath that got melted, and flash flood struck the Tapovan project within 20 minutes. Okay. Even last year also, when there was a glacier lake outburst in Sikkim, everybody was shocked. There was no cloudburst, there was no earthquake, nothing happened. But how the glacier lake outburst happened and the dam beneath downstream to that glacier lake got washed off completely, more than 100 people were killed. So we were the again first people to reveal the incident. Luckily we got early morning satellite pass. So it was revealed that because of massive landslide in the lake, so water surge was created and glacier lake outburst happened and it created a flash flood in the downstream side. So that is the power of the space technology. So now celebrating National Space Day. This year, this is the first time because on successful launch of Chandrayaan lander on the moon, Honorable Prime Minister of India announced to celebrate this National Space Day every year. This is the first year we are celebrating. ISRO has launched a disaster management support program. So, under which disasters monitoring, mapping, early warning. So, we provide space-based information addressing all natural disasters, particularly floods, cyclones, forest fire, landslides, earthquakes, glacial lakes, etc. in all phases of the disasters. Mainly the role of remote sensing is to address in response phase. So recently we started working on early warning phase also, like flood early warning. We are the first people to develop spatial flood early warning models for Godavari and Tapi rivers under National Hydrology Project, which gives the early warning in those two river basins 2 days advance forecast, that too in spatial domain. Okay, so people will come to know each village in the floodplain. They will come to know 2 days in advance when the flood will come, at what time flood will come, how much magnitude, depth, velocity, everything people will come to know. So that is the power of space technology and geospatial technology in the disaster management. So you are going to in more detail in subsequent programs. So with this, and we are happy to announce you that ISRO has become the lead for 2025 for International Charter on Space and Major Disasters. So next year we will be leading the International Charter.
Director General of Fire Services, Civil Defence and Home Guards, Shri Vivek Srivastav, IPS, in his inaugural address, highlighted the importance of technology in efficient disaster preparedness and risk reduction.
When I dealt with a natural disaster was in 2001. That was the time when I was posted as the Superintendent of Police of Kutch district. Actually, the major earthquake, which was actually the biggest disaster which has struck India in the last 2-3 decades, that happened on 26 January 2001. So I'll just try to portray what the situation was almost 3 decades earlier and what is actually happening now, and how we can actually harness technology, especially space technology, for managing disasters. We had no prior experience in disaster. There was no training on disaster management. So it was a situation where actually when I was standing in the parade ground, almost at 8:15 in the morning, actually the earthquake happened at 9 a.m. in the morning. So this was actually the safest place. And it was a 100-second earthquake. It was almost like never ending. 100 seconds seems very less, but and the whole earth was shaking, but it was difficult to stand. And I could see all around, almost the entire Bhuj town was collapsing in front of my eyes. So there was no prior intimation. Now let me add, for an earthquake, it is unlikely, even with the space technology, we'll have any prior intimation for an earthquake. So different disasters will have to be dealt with differently, and we will get different time span of advance warning, if at all, depending upon the type of disaster we are looking at. And we will get that kind of response time to actually prepare for that impending disaster. Now that was experience which was actually life-changing, because we had no wherewithal. There was no NDMA, there was no NDRF, there was no SDRF, there was no disaster preparedness, there was no contingency plan, there was nothing. And was able to do a reasonable job because I survived till my posting 1.5 years later. And we were able to, as I said, all the decisions had to be taken at that point of time without any preparation or any advance warning. Looking back, things which one had to do, because Kutch was a very large district. It actually has a 450-kilometer long boundary with Pakistan. Area-wise, now currently it is a 2 district, but it is actually as big as Kerala district. So I almost felt like a DG of a police, not a superintendent of police of a district. So initially, all the resources had to be gathered from within the district, because it was such a large district, so you had a large amount of area. So Kandla port was there, Mundra port was also there, Nalia Air Force Station was there, which had a landing strip, of course, and Bhuj Air Force Base was there. And then the western part, so actually all the communication had also collapsed. Now why I am mentioning all those things is how we can actually harness space technology for each and every issues which I am actually mentioning. Now, since all communication has collapsed, the VHF communication which we had collapsed, no telephone lines working, mobiles not working, so we had to actually go in for a HF frequency, high frequency actually connectivity, which is a simplex connectivity. So you can only actually transmit or receive at one given point of time. So with the minimal communication which we had, we actually tried to figure or judge what is the different, how severely this earthquake has struck at different places. So after 1 hour of actually trying to get information here, there, we could actually feel that the western part is not so badly affected. The central and the eastern part is very badly affected. And then we could actually mobilize resources from those areas which were not so severely affected to redeploy them to areas where actually it was more affected. In those 100 seconds, close to 20,000 people died. 150,000 people were very severely injured. The Bhuj hospital had also collapsed, in which 250 people died, including patients and doctors. So this was actually, I'm just giving you a sample of the severity of the situation which was there. And when you had, without any input coming from anywhere, one had to deal with that situation. Now for any disaster, since all of you are disaster professionals, managing disasters, or are in some way involved with managing disasters, you would be aware that there are basically 4 stages for any disaster management. The first is the initial period. Preparation, if you say, which actually it corresponds with, if we are able to predict a disaster, then we can prepare effectively. Now, as I told you earlier, there are times when you can get a good advance warning, like a cyclone, where India has done actually very well. There was a time, as in fact some of the speakers have said, there were huge casualties during a cyclone, but now there are almost close to 0. Why? Because of the predictability, and the course of the cyclone can be predicted using space technology exceedingly well. So we can prepare, evacuate people, and take all sorts of measures because of that. Again, as I said, for an earthquake, even now, we can't predict it. Even for floods, there is a large preparation time. So because we know flood water is rising, as Dr. Rao had actually pointed out. And so we can predict, depending on the hydrography of the area, where the flood waters will move, and take actually adequate preparations. So in these areas, in certain kind of disasters like floods, cyclone, we get a lot of advanced preparation using space technology. We are able to do it. Now, here, for predicting. The weather satellites are there, which will give a very accurate picture of the weather pattern and how it is likely to pan out. So these are geostationary satellites, but I will not go. Hopefully we'll be telling you about in their technical session. What are the type of technologies available and how you can actually get useful or important data from those. Now, once this is there, the second part of any disaster management is monitoring of the disaster. Once the disaster strikes, then to monitor how is it panning. Now, for some disasters, again, like an earthquake, it is like a guillotine. It happens 100 seconds, it is done. So then it is actually post-disaster work which you will have to do. Some disasters will be like evolving, like cyclone. So the severity will gradually increase. It will reach a very severe stage and then it will start waning. So then you can actually monitor over a period of time how it is progressing. And one can take actually action depending upon the severity of the disaster at that given point of time. So you can do an initial part, but when the disaster is at its peak, maybe you can't do much. But once it starts waning, then of course, then the additional forces for rehabilitation or for rescue, etc., can actually start doing work. Another area where we can monitor which is over a large period of time, which is happening now with more frequency and severity, is forest fire. So government is actually very concerned about the forest fire because it has not only it does a lot of environmental damage, but it has life-threatening consequences also. Another area where actually NDMA has done a lot of good work is regarding after that what was again spoken about, what had happened in Sikkim, the GLOF, G-L-O-F, it is the acronym. So these are the glacier lakes which actually burst. So they have done a lot of good work, and using space technology, they have mapped all those lakes in India which may ultimately result in this kind of a disaster. So they have identified 300. Now they have zeroed down to 30 lakes which are actually at some point of time may do that. In fact, 1 or 2 of them are located at Amarnath. Amarnath, during the Padayatra at Amarnath, it is during the summer. So that is the period when most of the glacial lakes are likely to burst also because of the higher temperatures which because of the climate change we are actually facing at number of places. As I go, the first area, as I said, is to predict a disaster and make preparations depending upon the amount of prediction which we can have. The second is the monitoring of a disaster. And of course, as I said, it will depend upon from disaster to disaster what kind of a disaster there is. Monitoring, even for monitoring, space technology is very important. Because now we can actually have, using space technology, even the resolution of 1 meter we can actually get very well. Monitoring becomes very important because our relief efforts are very closely tied up with the monitoring effort. Now, if we know which are the areas which are very severely damaged, what is the kind of damage. So initially, as I said, especially in a disaster, the resources will be very, very, very limited. All the NDRFs and SDRFs actually, and the army and the paramilitary, they start coming after 12 years, 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, etc. So at the initial time when maximum resources will be required, the availability of resources will be very, very poor. So it is imperative if we have technology, then we can actually allocate the resources at the right spot so as to save the maximum life and actually to prevent maximum damage. If we have infinite resources, then there is no requirement for that. But that is never the case. So resource allocation during the period of a disaster is of utmost importance, and the incident commander or whoever is the person who is actually in charge or is allocating resources, it is a very, very big and important tool if we have satellite technology which can actually tell us about an evolving disaster. Now, the third is after the disaster phase, which may last from 12 hours, 24 hours, 100 seconds, or whatever, depending upon the type of disaster which may have struck, is the phase of relief and rescue phase. So, especially in a forest fire or a wildfire, space technology is of actually utmost importance because we can see how much disaster was there, how much relief has come. For example, in a flood, how is the flood receding? So, which are the areas which we can actually do that? So, even here, space technology is of paramount importance. And the fourth is long-term rehabilitation measures. Even here again, space technology is ultimate important. Even in the space technology, as I said, for example, in an earthquake or any disaster, the first thing which happens is the communication will fail. Phones actually stop working there. If you have a wireless, many of the wireless also doesn't work. But here, the two technology which is there, which is independent of local factors, is the satellite telephone and even your global positioning system. So even for allocating resources, again I'll tell you, in Bhuj, after the earthquake struck, the first relief flight actually landed from Europe. I was actually very, very surprised. They didn't even come from Gandhinagar, which is in the same state, but they came from Europe. The reason is the communication and the technologies which the European countries had at that point of time, which we did not have. So they knew that such an earthquake of this magnitude has struck Bhuj. The disaster and the destruction which have been brought about by the earthquake, rather than us, we were even then actually trying to figure out what has happened really happened. They, using communication, they just wanted us, that our flight is coming, allow us to land at Bhuj airport, you give us a place where we can actually park ourselves. We don't require anything from you, we don't even require water. So the only thing as a superintendent of police which I had to do was to give them a place. So this is what I'm telling you, the importance of communication and technology, especially space technology. One is getting relief 5,000 kilometers away, and the relief from 500 kilometers has not arrived. What is the criticality missing? They have the technology, this technology was not there at that point of time. Use of space technology, especially communication, allocating resources and then fixing using GPS कि आपको कहाँ जाना है. So if you are coming from a different area, for example, you don't have to tell him कि road number this, block number that, and you are trying to figure out in a disaster area कि which is this road number and lane number, etc. You just give him a pinpointed GPS location कि you have to reach there, and this is the type of thing has happened. कि one building has collapsed, 10-story building, 100 people are probably trapped inside that building. The location is this. This is the pin. Reach there within 10 to 50 meters of that building. In a disaster, say if you are going to give a ready-made address, ki lane number this, house number that, Mr. XYZ, house ke piche, he's a very big man, and then you are trying to figure out, you are taking 5 hours trying to figure out where to reach. So all this technology has to be harnessed. These are all available either with the government of India, where the technology in the last 3 decades has really taken off, or one can even buy this information from various actually commercial satellites which is available, which is actually not too costly even now. So especially as I said, what I want to actually tell you, in all the 4 phases of predicting or planning a disaster, monitoring, actual disaster rescue, and post-disaster mitigation and rehabilitation, in each of those 4 stages, the role of space technology cannot be underestimated. So we have to make use of this technology. How to make technology and what is available probably be there in the technical sessions here. But having said that, the last thing which I want to tell you about is that any disaster, no 2 disasters will be same. Even if you're dealing with a cyclone, you forget about it, 2 cyclones are likely to be same, or any. So ultimately, it is the human component which will determine how well you have been able to plan or respond to a disaster. So ultimately, it is the commander who is taking a decision and who has to think her feet will able to determine how much we are able to use this space technology to our benefit and to respond to a disaster to the best of one's abilities. So having said that, this is actually the bottom line. In the end, it is not the machine, but ultimately the man who will be actually making use of the machine who will be supreme.
श्री सुरेंद्र ठाकुर सर,
इस कैंपस में स्वागत है और आप लोगों ने यहाँ आके हमें अनुग्रहित किया है। चूंकि हम सब लोग डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट फ्रेटर्निटी के हैं, तो हमें सबको पता है कि डीएम एक्ट के एडवेंट के पहले फायर सर्विस, सिविल डिफेंस और होमगार्ड के डीजी ही देश में डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट के लिए बहुत बड़ा रोल अदा करते थे। सब लोगों का मैं धन्यवाद ज्ञापन करता हूँ।
Presented by Dileep Jha. This broadcast came to you from Indraprastha channel of Akashvani, Delhi.